Okay, everybody, let's get going. For those who are going to join later, then that's fine. So hi, everybody, and welcome. So please note that this masterclass will be recorded. I see everybody's on mute. Please stay on mute unless you have a question at some point. So my name is Bastian van Wielen, and I'm a coach. And I specialize in career transition, in flow and peak performance, in flourishing in life, and in mindset. And today we're going to talk about the key to flow and flourishing in your life and your career. And if there's one thing that I'd like you to take away from this masterclass, is that the Jedi mindset is the key to flow and flourishing in your life. Plus, that this is something that you can develop. Now, let's also get clear on what I mean when I talk about flow and flourishing rather than being fake terms. So flourishing is basically the ultimate form of happiness. I borrowed this term from the #1 professor on positive psychology, Martin Seligman. So flourishing, the ultimate form of happiness. And flow. So what is flow? Flow is an optimal state of consciousness where you're fully engaged on the task at hand in the present moment. And in this state, you feel your best and you perform your best. So basically, we're going to explore the secrets to being happier, to performing better, and to feeling better. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. So this masterclass basically consists of 3 parts and 1 special gift at the end. So what are we going to cover? The first part will be the real deal between mindset and flow and flourishing. Now, in this section, I will show you that it's all about mindset. Whether we're talking about dealing with difficult situations or people or peak performance, mindset is the thing that pulls you through. The second part is unleash your own mental strength with the Jedi mindset. Here we're going to look at what the Jedi mindset actually is, how you can develop it, and how you can utilize it when things get tough. And finally, the third part is thriving amidst life's challenges. We're going to explore some real life example of what Jedi's mindset has done for other people and how to help them pull them through. And you can actually discover how surprisingly simple it is to develop this mindset yourself. Finally, I'll wrap up with a special gift and Q&A at the end. But I'm going to introduce this topic through my own journey of finding flow and flourishing and developing the Jedi mindset. So here's my story. So I wanted to go back when I was a young boy. And when I was a little boy, I had a lot of energy. I always wanted to play, and I was enthusiastic about basically everything. However, some kids found me a bit too much. They found me a bit overwhelming, and therefore they didn't want to play with me. And this made me a bit insecure and awkward. And other kids picked this up and they started bullying me. And I wasn't invited to many birthday parties. So when I moved from kindergarten to primary school, one thing changed and one thing stayed the same. The thing that stayed the same was that I still wasn't invited to many birthday parties. But what changed is that we started to do sports. And I happened to excel in sports. So whilst I was the last on the list when it came to birthday parties, I was always chosen for first when it came to sports. And when I started to stand out more and more in sports, I gradually also got invited to more birthday parties. So I started to believe that it was my performance in sport that made me likable. And at the age of 8, I started to play field hockey. Now, field hockey wasn't just a hobby. It was part of who I was. And at the age of 11, I was picked in the regional team under 15 for east of the Netherlands. So 3 to 4 years younger than other people were on the team. So being a talented and hockey player became more than a skill. It became my identity. I was Bastian, the hockey player. And my complete self-worth became conditional rather than unconditional. I was okay because I was talented. At that point, I didn't even realize how incredibly dangerous that actually was. Now, as my hockey journey unfolded, I experienced very few setbacks and minimal criticism. I went through it very easily. And everything seemed to come easy. And in mid-1993, things looked very, very good. I played in the national team under 18. and we just finished second in the European Championship. I was in the starting lineup about half of the games, and I still had one more year to go under 18s. So things looked very, very good for the following season. I also made my debut in the first team of HGC. Now, back then, HGC was a consistent top floor player in the Netherlands and had multiple internationals who played in the Olympic Games. And then in 1993, I suffered a major setback as I was struck by meningitis. So I found myself in a battle for my life that was bigger than any battle I'd ever fought on the field. I won the battle, but now I needed to fight my way back. And this proved much more demanding than I thought. Talent wasn't enough to fight back from setbacks. Resilience, fighting skills, bounce back skills. That is what I needed. But because everything had come so easily to me until then, I hadn't had the opportunity to develop these. And one by one, other players glided by me and I struggled to fight back. At the end of the season, I wasn't a candidate for the national team under 21 anymore. I couldn't expect much playing time in the first team of HGC. And in September 94, I made a choice I never imagined I would make. I gave up. Now my former coach, my hero and role model, Robert Delissen, told me I made the wrong choice. Now, this was painful. He told me, getting most out of yourself is not about talent, but it's about the choices you make and the actions you take. Now, Robert wasn't the most talented player in the country, especially compared to his younger brother, who was captain of the national team for many years. But Robert was more disciplined than most others. He had fighting skills that I haven't seen in anybody else. And this brought him to the national team, but he was borderline and he was dropped from the team many times. And being dropped a few weeks before the Olympic Games in Seoul in 1998 was probably the most notable one of them all. But this never seemed to discourage him. And every time he picked himself up and he got back stronger and stronger. And it was painful to hear this criticism from one of my heroes, but encouraging at the same time, because there was good news. And the good news is that it's about effort, more about effort than about talent. So despite the setbacks and challenges I faced in hockey, I still had a burning desire to prove myself, and eventually found something I could prove myself in, a corporate career. So there was hope. I might have been the talented player when it came to academic skills. I wasn't even close when it came to the most talented, when it came to cognitive skills. But as Robert shows me, it's more about choices and action, which are in your control. So there was hope. It was redemption time.
Je gaat echt niet werken.
Can you put yourself on mute,
Dus
please?
als iets
Give me a second.
daar was ook
Yeah.
Alweer.
ja.
Yes, done. Sorry for that. So I started my corporate career at Rabobank. And I was equity sales and I was responsible for Luxembourg investors, a group of investors with we had no existing relationship. So I was very enthusiastic. I visited them, but the enthusiasm that I had wasn't there on the other side. And the message that I got was, we're looking to reduce counterparts, not expand. And we're only going to work with banks who bring over lots of research analysts. So I went back to my boss and I said, I need to bring lots of research analysts. And his response was, no way. So I was faced with a task that seemed absolutely impossible. I realized that I didn't have control over my clients. I didn't have control over my boss and I had nothing to lose. I had to come creative. It was about my choices and actions. And I wasn't to be stopped. And I had one goal in my career. I wanted to work for Morgan Stanley. So my solution, I had to make sure that I knew my stuff as well as the research analyst and go over and to present myself. Now, my colleagues thought that I was nuts and naive, but I felt I had nothing to lose. So my first trip over was in October 2003. And how do you think it went? Please type it in the chat if you're brave enough to let you know how I thought I did. How was my first trip, you think, in 1993. How do you think I did? Curious to see what you, if you have the guts to answer this question. I dare you. No, don't worry. Don't worry. I understand. I understand you don't want to offend me because absolutely, you're right. I was awful. I absolutely sucked. But thanks to my failures, I learned a lot. And there was something that I did. This was where I developed my first fighting skills and the growth mindset that I failed to develop in hockey. And every time I went over, I gradually got better and better. And by mid 2004, I succeeded in converting the first few accounts, marking a significant turning point in my journey. Now, this experience gave me lots of confidence in my ability. Furthermore, the skill that I developed over those first 1.5 years, they gave me a competitive advantage that stayed with me for the rest of my career. So the absence of setbacks held me back in my athletic career, yet propelled me forward in my corporate career. After Rabo, I went to Kempen, and then in 2006, my dream came true as I was offered a job at Morgan Stanley. I was let go during GFC, but fought my way back to land a job at Citigroup, where I spent the balance of my career in financial services. So eventually, I left financial services industry in 2019. But if you ask me if I get most of my corporate career, the answer is unfortunately a convincing no. Why? Because I didn't yet have what it takes to constantly find flow and flourishing, and therefore I eventually burned out. Now, after saying goodbye to my demanding job in financial services, I embarked on a new journey, a career in coaching. I dove headfirst into coaching with the same energy, drive, and ambition that I had in my corporate career. I immersed myself in courses, eager to expand my knowledge and expertise. I delved deep into psychology theory and peak performance theory. However, the most profound lessons were the ones that came when I did my own inner work with my own coaches. I came to realize that if I truly wanted to be happy and successful, I had to develop a more healthy belief system and a stronger personal attributes. I had to start believing that I was unconditionally okay, and that my worthiness wasn't derived from my performance, but simply for who I was. I had to learn more empowering self-talk and to be my own judge. And through this transformational process, I not only cultivated a deep understanding of what it takes to find flow and flourishing in life, but also internalized its principles, anchoring them within myself. And by doing my own inner work about flow, flourishing, beliefs, and my belief systems, I came to realize that you can think of the pathway to flow and flourishing as a temple. And when you develop the temple, sequencing is important. And let me show you how that works. So what do we want to get out of life? We want flow and flourishing. Why flow? Because in flow, we feel our best and we perform our best. And why flourishing? It's the broadest definition of happiness. So how do we get there? Let's look at this temple. This temple has 4 layers. From top to bottom, the rooftop, pillars, stepping stones, and foundation. So let me quickly tell you what they represent. And I'll explain more in depth later in the masterclass. Plus, please don't get overwhelmed by all the letters here. They're not important right now, and the ones that will be important, I'll explain when we get to them. So let's start at the bottom. So the lowest level of the temple is the foundation. This is basically your belief system. This represents what you believe about yourself, the world, and other people. But mainly, most importantly, what you believe about yourself. Now, this is unconscious and therefore underground. On top of this rest the stepping stones. So basically, these are your personal attributes. And the stepping stones rest on the foundation, i.e. on your belief. And they carry the 3rd level, which is your effort. And finally, these pillars, they carry the roof structure. And the roof structure represents your execution and your strategy. And when we have something to go after, or we have a strategy on how to get there and execute that strategy, that's when we experience flow and flourishing. Now I have a question for you. If you want a temple to stand the test of time and remain strong and upright for centuries and weather any storm and challenges, which layer do you think is the most important? And please type it in the chat. The rooftop, the pillar, the stepping stones, or the foundation? What do you think? Which of these four do you think is most important? Foundation. Foundation. Absolutely. Foundation is the most important one. And after the foundation, what do you think is the most important after foundation? What's the second most important one, you think? Make a guess. I'll give you the answer. The second most important one are your stepping stones. Without the stepping stones and the foundation, they wouldn't have been able to stand upright. They carry the rest. Now, the stepping stones and the foundation together, that is what I call the Jedi mindset. And those two levels carry the rest. So over the years, I developed my own Jedi mindset. I finished it a couple of years ago. Now, unfortunately, this Jedi mindset was properly tested over the last couple of years. So launching my coaching business proved way more difficult than I initially thought. And from a personal perspective, I went through the two toughest years of my life. But thanks to the Jedi mindset, I came through stronger, smarter, and happier on the other side. So I developed it. And it's done a lot for me. And you could be next. And it can also do a lot for you. So this story has a lot to do with peak performance. But there's way more than the Jedi mindset can do for you. Let me tell you about that. So here are 8 other things that the Jedi mindset can do for you on top of flow. For example, it can help you to remain calm in difficult situations. An ability to rise to the challenge when things get tough. But also an ability to deal with stress-provoking bully bosses, colleagues, referees, opponents, and stay calm in every situation and towards other people to stay composed and in control. Now, a large part of this masterclass will be about peak performance, and a lot of examples are from sports. Now, this may be a little bit misleading. So therefore, a couple of examples of people that I work with who are in similar sort of situations where they need to rise to be able to deal with situations. So what does mindset actually mean? Mindset basically means your attitude towards something or how you deal with something. Now, my first example is Job. Job studied mathematics. He's a very smart guy. And he landed a job at a consultancy firm. He likes to solve problems and crunch numbers with like-minded people. But that is not really the culture you see at such organizations, where it's not about working together to serve client by number crunching, but it's a lot about milking your clients and by showing off against each other so you can look good in the eyes of your bosses and get promoted. So Job loves the work, but he loathes the culture. And now we're working together on this Jedi mindset to help him deal better with the situation. And I guess some of the call, this might sound familiar too. Now, a second thing, and this is also something that might sound familiar to some people. A second person is Suzanne, and she's head of a desk at a marketing division at a US bank. Now, a few months ago, she got a new boss, and he was quite a character and puts a lot of pressure on Suzanne. Now, she's afraid to look bad, and she's afraid to let him down. And now we're working together to develop a Jedi mindset so she's better able to deal with this situation. So it's not just peak performance, but also how you deal with specific situations. And the fourth thing that it does is an ability to put boundaries in place. Learning to say no. That's what the Jedi mindset will enable you to do. Also, self-worth, feeling better about who you are as a human being. Stop caring about the opinions of others. Ability to focus on what you control. And really, really enjoying time with family, time with friends, and enjoying life. For example, when you're on holiday, rather than having to look every 5 minutes to look at your email, you can just relax without having to worry to be anxious. This is something that Suzanne experienced. She has to look every time to make sure that she doesn't miss anything, afraid to upset her boss. That is not a way to enjoy time on the beach. Now, my question to you, now just imagine if you look at all of these things about flourishing and flow, if there would be one or two that you'd like to develop, which one would they be? If you could write in the chat, I would really appreciate that. What are the things you'd like to develop? Life, absolutely. Boundaries, very important. Absolutely. Protect yourself. Oh, good. Okay, so let's later on see how we can do that. When we start talking about the Jedi mindset, you will see where that becomes possible for you. So let's start with the first part, the real deal between mindset, flow, and flourishing. Now, when it comes to reaching the top and peak performance, the common notion is that talent is key. Society is obsessed with talent. Look at the shows on TV, how we select sports kids, and how we talk about athletes. It's all about talent. But is this fair? Now, here's the story. Picture this. It's Sunday, the 30th of January, 2000. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. It's not a normal Sunday. It is Super Sunday. It's Super Sunday 34. It's approximately 9:20 in Atlanta or 3:20 in the middle of the night in Amsterdam. But despite the late hour, my flatmate and I are wide awake, glued to the TV, watching Super Bowl 34 between our hero, Kurt Warner, and his St. Louis Rams and the Tennessee Titans. Now, when Kurt was a little boy, nobody thought he would end up here. And his journey to the Super Bowl was anything but easy. He wasn't a high school standout. He wasn't a college standout. He even didn't get drafted. He was rejected multiple times, experienced many setbacks. So nobody really believed in Kurt, except one person, Kurt himself. Now, this helped him persevere and develop a mindset that enabled him to deal with every challenging situation. And that is exactly what he needed right now. Because during the game, the Rams took a 16-0 lead. But with 2 minutes to go, suddenly the Titans have come all the way back to tie it at 16. The Titans had the momentum, but we've got the ball and we've got Kurt. And as the Rams huddle to take their position on their own 27-yard line, the camera zooms in on Kurt. And despite the pressure of millions of people watching, he's a picture of calm and focus. And this highlights everything that we're going to talk about today. So Kurt takes a deep breath in and starts to count. The center snaps the ball into his hand. He takes a couple of steps back, looks to his right, and fires the ball over 50 yards towards his wide receiver, Isaac Bruce, who catches the ball wide open on the 30-yard line. maneuvers himself past a couple of defenders, and runs the ball into the end zone. 2 minutes later, the Rams are the winners of Super Bowl 34. Our hero, Kurt Warner, won the MVP award. The guy without any talent wins the Super Bowl, and he wasn't even a one-day fly. He had a great career and made it into the Hall of Fame. Now, I have the notion that talent is critical. How come Kurt Warner made it into the Hall of Fame, and this guy failing so badly in his hockey career? Let's find out. I found my first explanation when I came across the work of two important scientists. And the first one is Anders Ericsson. Now, in 1993, he was professor at Florida State University, and he published a groundbreaking article on mastery. He studied violin players, then he looked at chess masters and composers, and everywhere he looked, he found that finding mastery requires approximately 10 years or 10,000 hours of what he called deliberate practice. And later, Malcolm Gladwell called this the 10,000-hour rule. Now, deliberate practice involves deliberately focusing on an area of your craft you want to improve, practicing at the edge of your skill set and repeating and repeating and repeating until it becomes automatic. And this is exactly what Mozart did, and what the Beatles did, and what Shohei Ohtani is doing today. Those people are GOATs for one reason alone. They put in the effort required for mastery. And the second scientist that I want to mention is Angela Duckworth. She's a psychology professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Now, before that, she was a teacher. And she was always struck by how poor of a predictor of achievement talent actually was. This fascinated her so much that she decided to study this and started to work in academia. So she researched across various groups, ranging from corporate sales teams to spelling bees to teachers to elite military schools, consistently showed that the biggest predictor of success is grit. Now, grit is sustained application of effort towards long-term goals. Grit is stamina. Grit is sticking with your long-term goals, even when things get tough. Grit is approaching life as a marathon, not as a sprint. Now, two questions we need to answer. So what's the biggest takeaway of all of this? And how does this relate to the tempo I showed earlier? So let's go to the first question, my takeaway. Let's connect Ericsson and Duckworth. So now to achieve mastery, you need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. That's Ericsson. Now, what do we need for 10,000 hours of deliberate practice? We need grit. Grit provides you with the stamina and long-term commitment for daily practice, leading to peak performance. So my message of this masterclass is to inspire and empower you. So the message is not that you need to put in 10,000 hours. Such a notion would be discouraging to most of you. Instead, my message is that you can grow faster and achieve more than you currently believe is possible, simply by putting in the effort. And because effort is in your control, your mastery is in your control. And throughout this masterclass, you'll discover why and you discover how. So Q1 in one sentence. Not talent, but grit is key to mastery. And as grit is in your control, so is mastery. So how does this relate to the tempo? Which was my second question. Now, to answer this, I want to go to my peak performance teacher, Steven Kotler. So Steven Kotler, he studies peak performance. And after 20 years of studying and interviewing peak performance about grit and perseverance, he identified 6 pillars of grit, which he published in his book, The Art of Impossible. And these 6 are the grit to persevere, control your thoughts, be at your best when you're at your worst, train your weakness, master your fear, and recover. Now, I can imagine if you see these pillars that some of you might get really, really excited, but most probably get a little bit overwhelmed. I have to disappoint those who get excited and say, don't worry to those who feel overwhelmed. Yes, you do need all of these 6 for elite peak performance, but that is not what this masterclass is about. This is about the Jedi mindset and how this can help you find more flow in your career and flourishing in your life. And once you develop this Jedi mindset, then we can look at grit. And by the time when the time comes, let me know. I'm more than happy to help you, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. But here's a story that I want to tell you about grit that will help you understand the Jedi mindset even better. And this story is a story about Mark Tuitert. Back in 2001, Mark Tuitert was one of the most promising ice skaters. He'd already won the World Cup Junior Ice Skating in 1999, which you can see on the picture here. And at age 21, he was destined for greatness. Everybody, his country, the press, as well as himself, expected him to win a medal at the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake City. Now, he had the complete package, both the talent as well as the determination. He trained harder than anybody else. When during training camps, they were asked to skate 10 rounds, to skate for 10 rounds, he did 11. And when they were asked to do 2 hours on the bike, he did 3. He even trained on resting days. He went all in. But as the season progressed, his body started to send him signals that not all was well. He felt tired all the time and got so sick more than usual. But after he recovered from sickness, he trained even harder to make up for lost time. And then in December of 2001, 3 months before the Olympics, he collapsed. He was overtrained, exhausted, and burned out. He missed the Olympics, and the press labeled him as a failure. Determined to prove them wrong, he gave it another try in 2006, but he failed at the trials and couldn't go to the Olympics. So devastated, but not willing to give up, he had one more shot, the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. Now, his curiosity led him to Stoic philosophy, which is the birthplace of some of the key elements of the Jedi mindset. Now, in his book Drive, he describes the day of the 1500-meter race. Now, before the race, negative thoughts intruded his mind. What if I fall? What if I have a bad day? What if my competitor Shawnee has a great day? He's caught these thoughts and reminded himself of the lessons of philosopher Epictetus. Focus on what you control. Let go of the rest. And Tuitert at that point realized he had no control over his competitor, the quality of the ice, or what people think of him. The only thing he could control were his thoughts, his actions, and his process. So he focused on the race. He let go of the aim for gold and concentrated just on skating the best race he could. He knew that he had to focus on the first few strokes. If these would go well, he would drop into flow and the rest take care of himself. Everything else was distraction. So he went to the starting line. He controlled his thoughts. He controlled his nerves. He nailed his first few strokes. He dropped to flow and won the gold at the most prestigious distance in ice skating. Now, what do you think he did differently in 2010 compared to 2002? As you can see here, grit isn't just working hard. That is called grind. But Mark became gritty and strengthened 2 key pillars of grit. If you have an idea which one those were, please put them in the chat. What do you do better? More perseverance, control your thoughts, be it your best to be at your worst, train your weakness, master your fear, or recover. If you have an idea, please give it a try. What do you think he did better? No idea? Control your thoughts. Absolutely. That's one. What do you think the second one was? Master fear. Almost. Almost. to some extent. He wasn't afraid to be judged by others. That made it easier for him. But the most important one is recovery. Now, what enabled him to develop, to further strengthen these two grit pillars? And that was his further development of the Jedi mindset. And I'll explain this in part 2. So to wrap up part 1, the conclusions. But before I show you my conclusions, I want to check what your main conclusions are. What are your main takeaways about what we've discussed so far? Please let me know. Everybody could do one-liner in the chat. You'd make me a very happy man. Grit is good. Grit's the Great would be a nice book title, I think. Everybody can break it if they're not, yeah. Everybody can break if they're not in flow. Absolutely. Building strong foundation is essential. I like that one. Okay, so I'll tell you, focus on your personal impact. Definitely. That's very, very empowering. And that is definitely one of the key things that will come back later on. So my key takeaways. Not talent, but effort is the key to mastery. And grit is key for effort. Grit can be developed. So it's all in your control. Isn't that empowering? Now let's move on to part number 2, unleash your own inner strength. We're going to look at what the Jedi mindset actually is, how you can develop it, and finally, how you can utilize this mindset when things get tough in your own life. Now you wonder why I might call it Jedi. Well, there are 3 main reasons for that. Let me tell you those first. The first one is that the Jedi have unmatched fighting skills. They can fight like no others, but they only do so when really, really necessary. Because most of the time, they're calm and composed and fully in control. And thirdly, the Jedi symbolism, the temple symbolism, because the Jedi, they always gather on the temple in Coruscant. And the way to think about flow and flourishing in your life can be explained to the temple that I showed earlier. And we're gonna go through again to make you better understand and introduce the Jedi mindset. So what do we look for in our lives? We look for flow and flourishing. When we get that, we've got something to go for. When we have a strategy how to get there and execute on that. And what do we need to continue to execute the strategy even when things get tough? We need grit. Now the era of strategy and execution is like an arrow pointing upwards, and this symbolizes what grit and the Jedi mindset can do for you. Raise your game, go higher, and go after your dreams and ambitions, and find flow and peak performance in your career and flourishing in your life. Now, what do we need to keep the tempo upright in challenging times? What enables us to remain focused and gritty and to continue to execute our strategy? We need personal attributes, i.e., we need stepping stones. And we need empowering beliefs like the temple foundation. And together, these stepping stones, i.e., your personal attributes, and your foundation, i.e., your belief system, they form the Jedi mindset. Now let's look at what these attributes actually are, i.e., what are the elements of the Jedi mindset. So to start with the upper level. And the first one is passion. The only way to do great things is to love what you do, Steve Jobs. Now, to persist for hours and hours, year in and year out, you need passion. You need an intense enthusiasm and excitement about what you're doing. So passion is crucial for grit. However, if you want to persevere, if you want to persevere, and if you want to do the deliberate practice on and on, then setbacks are inevitable, and it isn't always fun. So passion alone isn't enough. So to persevere through the difficult moments when it's not fun and things are tough, we need to be able to tap into willpower. Willpower is basically self-control, the ability to resist distractions, stay focused, and delay gratifications. And the way to look at willpower is think of it like a muscle. It's strongest in the morning when we're well rested, and it erodes as the day goes by. And you can make it stronger by training. It needs to recover after intense use, and you can restore and reset it. One example about willpower, and the example of why it's stronger in the morning and it fades over time. Just let's say you come into the kitchen in the morning, you're hungry, and what do you see in front of you? You see a cookie. And like, no, I'm not going to take a cookie now. I'm going to have something healthy for breakfast. So you can resist the temptation. But now let's say it's the evening, just before you go to bed. You don't need energy because you're going to sleep. And there's that same cookie. There's no incentive whatsoever to need it. You don't need the energy, but you can't resist the temptation and you eat the cookie. Why? Because your willpower has been depleted. And willpower is what was key for Kurt Warner, for Mark Duitert in their careers, but also think of Steve Jobs. He had some really big setbacks, and he was sacked from the company that he set up himself. Willpower was going through, and it gets you going when things get tough. So passion and willpower are the upper level of the stepping stone. Passion is what gets you into the game. Willpower is what keeps you going when things get difficult. So that's the upper level. Now let's look at the lower level of the stepping stones, i.e. the second level of your personal attributes. And these are the growth mindset, GMS, internal reference, and internal locus of control. Now let's look at them one by one. The growth mindset. I haven't failed. I've only found 10,000 ways that don't work. This is what Thomas Edison said. He had one mission in his life. That's to come up with the light bulb. But before he finally did it, because he first failed over and over again. And people were like, you're failing, it isn't working. But he said, no, I'm not. Every misstep you make, you come closer to the perfect step. Now, in 2006, Carol Dweck introduced the term growth mindset. And in her research, she shows that people with a growth mindset, they experience more flow and flourishing in their lives. And people with the growth mindset, they believe that skills can be developed. They have a constructive approach to setbacks, and they're not obsessed with the opinions of other people. Now, Michael Jordan embodied this mindset like no other. Nothing motivated him more than being dropped from the high school varsity team. And as a freshman in university, he deliberately asked the best player on the team to play one-to-one with him. According to his teammate, he was destined to fail. According to him, he was destined to learn. Now, I failed to develop this as a young hockey player. I was obsessed with the perception of others. Therefore, I didn't tolerate the constructive approach to setbacks. I only started to develop this in my corporate career. Now, the next personal attribute or stepping stone is internal reference. The only approval you need is your own. Internal reference basically means you are your own judge and you don't need validation or approval of other people. Now, a growth mindset needs the support of the internal reference. Because this helps them to remain unfazed when faced with a challenge. This allows them to give them a tolerance for setbacks. So this is about your own beliefs, standards, and observations. So internal reference is crucial for the growth mindset, but it's also crucial for the other stepping stone, the next stepping stone, and that's the internal locus of control. Ernest Henley, I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. Something that also that you probably also know from Nelson Mandela. And something similar, by the way, as Viktor Frankl, what enabled him to survive the concentration camps during the Second World War. Now, what's this all about? Individuals with an internal locus of control, they merely focus on what they control, and they attribute success and failures to their own actions and own decisions. This is basically the same as Covey habit number 1. Focus on what you control and let go of the rest. So now that I've explained the 5 stepping stones, i.e. your personal attributes, it's time to shift to another crucial level of the Jedi mindset, which is the foundational level, the bedrock on which the entire structure rests. And that's basically your belief system. So let's explore that. So basically, we need a strong belief system, which consists of 4 pillars, 4 foundational pillars. So let's explore them one by one. Pillar number 1 is I am okay no matter what. That's the one on the left, saying 3 letters, UWL. I am unconditionally worthy and lovable. No matter what the situation, I am unconditionally lovable and worthy, and I don't need to prove it, let alone prove it over and over again. Now your self-worth then becomes unconditional. And therefore, it's not dependent on your achievements, on you pleasing other people, or you being flawless and perfect. And if you can let go of pleasing other people or results or being perfect, if you're no longer dependent on that, you can become your own judge and you can tolerate failure and setbacks, and therefore also develop a growth mindset and internal locus of control. So you see that this foundational pillar is crucial for carrying some of the stepping stones. Now the second pillar, GBO, is I am gonna be okay no matter what. So GBO is gonna be okay. So if you can believe you can bounce back from every setback, then fears disappear. For example, there are some people who fear that they get fired if they do something wrong. If they can let go of this, if they're no longer afraid that they get fired because they are convinced they're going to find something new, then the fear disappears. And if fear disappears, tolerance for setbacks and failure goes up, and it allows you to become your own judge, to build a growth mindset and internal locus of control. Plus, if fear disappears, you're going to experience much more flow, because fear triggers adrenaline, and adrenaline is your number 1 chemical that blocks you from flow. So the third one is I can do it. If you believe in your own success, if you believe you can do it, you become very powerful and you can get into the Pygmalion upward cycle. So if you believe in your abilities, you're going to take action, and your action are going to lead to results. And these results are going to reinforce your belief. And that's how you enter the Pygmalion cycle, taking you higher and higher. And the fourth and final pillar is empowering self-talk. EST, empowering self-talk. Now, this foundational pillar focuses on the power of positive self-talk. This is what pulls you through in tough times. They can help you stay calm, composed, and motivated, and help you come out stronger and smarter on the other side. When you say to yourself, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay, and I can do it. So putting this all together, the pillars and stepping stones are your Jedi mindset, i.e. your belief system and your personal attributes. They enable you to rise to the challenge when things get tough. They enable you to get gritty and find flow. And they enable you to flourish in life. And a Jedi mindset isn't something you're born with. It's something that you need to train and develop. And by focusing on training each of these stepping stones and pillars individually, you can create a robust framework that will serve in every aspect of your life. And over time, these elements will naturally integrate and strengthen each other. Now I've got a question. Which of the stepping stones and foundations do you think Mark Titer developed between 2002 and 2010? And I'll give you a hint. He developed 2 stepping stones and 1 pillar, and he had to utilize 1 other stepping stone. So please put the answer in the chat. Which one do you think he developed? Was it willpower, passion, growth mindset, internal reference, internal locus of control? Believing he was okay? Gonna be okay? I can do it, or empowering self-talk? What do you think? I know it's a tough one. But let me tell you, the first one was internal reference. He had to become his own judge. His Stoic philosophy taught him, don't focus on the opinions of others. Be your own judge. And as a consequence, he could also develop an internal locus of control. This is what he learned from Epictetus. Focus you on what you control. Let go of the rest. Furthermore, he had much more empowering self-talk. Just before the race, when thoughts went through his mind, what if you fall? He said, focus on the task, focus on what you can do, and you can do it. And finally, he had to utilize his growth mindset. Now, the only thing that you have to develop now is develop it for yourself. And once you've built it, you can utilize it when difficult situations emerge in your life. If all of a sudden you're faced with a challenge or with a setback, you will no longer be overwhelmed or give up as you would in the past, but you're able to rise to the challenge following 3 simple steps. And the first one is catch your feelings and thoughts. Catch your feelings and thoughts and your negative self-talk. When, not if, you're suddenly faced with a challenge, because challenges are going to come. Your body gives you a stress response and releases stress chemicals. Your brain interprets this as something is wrong and will start pessimistic dialogue in your head. Now, in the past, you used this to react to it, and you become in a downward spiral, and things would get worse. Now, with the Jedi mindset, you can catch these thoughts and move over to step 2. Steady yourself. Steady yourself with perspective and empowering self-talk. You will be able to stay calm, put things in perspective, encounter the negative thoughts with empowering statements, and then move to step number 3. Respond wisely. Do what is right. Do what you have to do in this situation. So rather than getting overwhelmed and act like a headless chicken, you can catch yourself, steady yourself, and act. So CSA. Now let's look at a few examples of CSA in action. The first one is Mark Titer before the race. He caught the thoughts that were intruding his mind. What if I fall? What if I have a bad day? Then he put them in perspective. He steadied himself. He came back with empowering self-talk. Focus on what you control. Focus on the first few strokes. And then he executed. Focus on the first few strokes. Nailed it. Dropped into flow. And won the gold. Now that's CSA in action. Thanks to the Jedi mindset. Burt Warner. When the Titans came back, all the way back to 16 all, he thought to himself, oh shit, for a second. And then he caught himself. Focus on your task. And then he executed. 1 pass, and the Rams won the Super Bowl. That's CSA in action, thanks to the Jedi mindset. And then this little fella. So I did my first masterclass last week on Monday. And when I started, I had a problem with my screen. So I wanted to put on the presentation in presenter mode, but it didn't work on Zoom. So I looked like an idiot, and I had to stop it. And when I stopped it, I had to open my other laptop, and it took me a few minutes to get going. And I saw the attendance go down 1, 2. So I saw people leaving one by one, and I felt the adrenaline rush to my body. I called myself and I said to myself, don't worry, you're gonna be okay no matter what. And then this might actually be a great opportunity to use it as an example and to highlight the Jedi mindset in action. So I stayed calm, found the solution, restarted with a 10-minute delay, and I could immediately use the example and explain it to those people then and to you now. So that was my CSA, thanks to my Jedi mindset in action. So let's move on to the third part, thriving amidst life's challenges, where we're going to explore how it helped clients of mine and how it can help you. Now, here's a story about Jan. Jan is an entrepreneur and he's a friend of mine. His real name is different, but he wanted to remain anonymous. But because I like Jan better than anonymous, I go with Jan. Now, Jan lost his job at the early part of the pandemic, and he decided to set up his own online business. He was an optimist, or he still is an optimist. He was optimistic and a vision for his business. He went all in. But setting up his business proved harder than he thought. And he struggled to get clients, to generate revenues, and to make enough money to take care of his family. He considered giving up and going back to his corporate job. I proposed to help him out. So he was skeptical that it would work out, hesitant to make the financial investment, and worried that coaching would take too much time that he could better spend on doing his business. Now, despite all that, he decided to give it a try. Together, we looked at his market, the company, and his strategy, but most important, we worked on all of the elements of the stepping stones and the foundation of the Jedi mindset. Now, he stuck with his company, and he really needed his Jedi mindset in 2022 and 2021 and 2022, because it remained very, very tough for him. But in 2023, his business started to take off. And if we look at the run rate year to date, he's set to make revenues north of 1 million euros. And now he looks more like this. So he said committing time and money to coaching was the best decision he ever made. It helped him to stay committed and persevere through the difficult times. But there's more than that. Before we started on this process, he was anxious and he took this anxiety home with him. And this prevented him from being a very nice and present father and husband. But the Jedi mindset also helped him to be more relaxed at home, which helped him strengthen his relationship with the people that are most important in his life and he loves the most. And according to him, this is the biggest gain of them all. So what will be the result if you develop a Jedi mindset? You understand the tempo of flourishing and flow. And you know what it takes to develop a Jedi mindset. You know what it takes to be gritty, to apply CSA. And it will enable you to find more flow in your career, enable you to perform better, but also to flourish in life. So with that, I've got a question for you. Do you want to develop a Jedi mindset? Do you want to develop grit? Do you want to be able to stay composed, to stay calm, and to apply CSA in difficult situations? And do you want to experience lots of flow in your career? And finally, do you want to be able to rise to the challenge, set boundaries, be present with your family, own a higher level of self-worth without caring about the opinions of others, i.e., do you want to flourish in life? Now, if the answer to one of these questions is yes, then I've got something for you. Because I'm 100% confident I can help you in developing your own Jedi mindset without extreme effort or investment. So introducing the Jedi Mindset Training Program. Now, this is an 8-week training program designed to help you develop this mindset and enable you to achieve flow in your career and flourishing in life. Now, here's what to expect. The first thing is there's going to be a weekly session where we're going to talk through all of these parts of the stepping stones and the pillars. There's one live session. It's partly theory, it's partly exercises, it's partly coaching. Also, all of these sessions will be taped, will be recorded. And there's a library of all the sessions, so that you can go back to the videos every time and watch it again and again. The third thing is that there's a weekly Q&A session. So there's a call in the beginning of the week, and at the end of the week, you can join a Q&A session, or we can both go through the material again and any questions you might have, plus do some live coaching as well. Furthermore, and this is, some might even consider this the more powerful point of all, there's access to the community. So you're in a cohort with other people. You experience things together. You learn things together. You support each other, and you make new friends. Plus, you got exclusive discounts to any future coaching that you do with me. You get a 15% discount. And it doesn't matter if it's a sprint program, if it's a peak performance program, a mastery program, and even the premium 16,000 euro Rolls-Royce Go for Gold program. Also for those programs, you get a 15% discount. Now the total value of this is enormous, both its monetary value as well as what it could do to change your life. But I've got a special gift. I'm offering this for a fraction of what its value are. And I even give a 35% discount on top. So I'm only going to charge for this program 647. Now getting all of this is probably priceless, but you only have to pay this. Now some practical information is going to run, it's going to be 8 weeks, and each week we're going to work on one or more stepping stone or foundational level. And at the end, we're going to bring it all together. So if you want this, you can go to this website and you can purchase it. And I do have to emphasize one thing. There are only limited spaces, and some of these spaces have already been taken up by people who were on earlier calls or who joined the peak performance program that I run earlier in the year. So if you want to join, I would encourage you to be fast and secure your spot to not miss out. And as this works on a first come, first served basis, there is some urgency to this. And finally, my special gift is the word pioneer. This is the code pioneer. If you go to this website and you fill in pioneer, you get the 35% discount. Now, if you have any questions about the program, you can ask them to me. You can ask them to me or send me a direct message or an email. Or if you have any questions about the rest of the presentation, feel free to ask them now. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Q&A. Oh, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, thanks for sharing that link in the chat. So you can either speak up or raise your digital hand if you might have a question. Any questions? Not everybody at the same time. Ah, good. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So this program starts next week, but there's something important that I want to emphasize, and that is if you look at this program, so it's going to start next week. What I'm going to do, so it's going to run for June until July. So what I'm going to do early in the week, there's a live session. But I'm giving you multiple options. So don't worry. So for most people, they're going to do it on Monday, 6 o'clock Central European time or 5 BST. But some people can't make that. They get an opportunity to do it another time. So I'm having multiple slots where you can do the live call. Furthermore, what also might happen is that people might be on holiday, for example, 1 or 2 weeks in July. That is no problem. So what we're going to do is all the sessions are going to be recorded. So if you fall behind, that's no problem. You look at the recording and do it yourself. Plus, in August, in the 3rd week of August, we're going to repeat all of the weeks, all of the sessions again. So if you miss a few weeks, don't worry. So I hope that's clear. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Maybe I have a question for you. If there would be one takeaway that you have from this meeting. So 2 questions. 1, what is your main takeaway? And 2, if you look at what you were looking for at the beginning, was that what you found? Or were there other things that came up that were useful for you? You're welcome, Emily. Yes, there will be a recording. Yeah, I'll take care of that. No worries. That will be sent over, Sonoli. You're welcome. Okay. Now with that, we've come to the conclusion. So thank you very much. And I wish you a good evening, a good weekend. I hope to see you somewhere in the future. And I wish you lots of flow and flourishing in your life and in your career. Thank you very much.